Hello, my name is Leslie Shannon, and I'm here to talk about the year the Earth stood still. Yes, that is 2020. We're living it. And, um, but there are silver linings to things like the pandemic and the lockdown. And one of them is the acceleration of digital life that COVID has brought about. And more specifically, the effects on the XR industry, both AR and VR. So that's what I'm here to talk about. But before I get into that, let me have a word of explanation. First of all, yes, I do work for Nokia. I'm our head trend scout located in Silicon Valley. But before you get all excited and go, oh, Nokia's got some kind of AR, VR thing, no, just to set the record straight here. We sold our handset business, the phone business, to Microsoft back in 2014 or so. And so our main business today is something that we've always done, even during all the handset days, which is creating the network equipment to run both mobile and fixed networks. And our main customers are the phone companies of the world and large companies that want to build their own private networks. So that's what we do. And so why am I here at an AR VR convention? Well, because we actually see, well, the thing that we're involved in right now, and overwhelming us as a company at the moment, is the global rollout of 5G networks. And that is actually important for AR and VR for a very particular reason. And let me show you this, and then we can get on to the digital transformation of life topic. But just to explain why we're interested in this. If we think about the devices that we're using, and not just AR and VR, but everything, my phone, my laptop, your phone, your laptop, all these things, they're expensive devices, and they're big and they're heavy and they've got a lot of processing power to them, which is good because we can do a lot of stuff, but they also they can be expensive and they can generate a lot of heat. And and they've got these wonderful chips in them that can do all kinds of amazing things. Well, what we see going forward, and it's not just in this industry realm, but in all kinds of things, AR and VR and robotics and drones and video analytics and cloud gaming, what all of these things have in common is what we call splitting the chip, which is what 5G actually enables. And it's the concept of having a much lighter, smaller chip on the end device so that the lighter device can be fast, but also lower battery life, lower weight, lower heat, lower cost. All of those things, all good. And then you use 5G, and so the chip on these things has a minimum processing functionality. But then you use 5G to connect back to servers in the network that give you even more power when you put these two things together than you ever had with a single expensive chip on the end device. So we really see 5G as the ultimate enabler of where AR and VR are going. And as I said, not just AR and VR, but robotics and drones and all these things. So we're not involved in this today beyond just the 5G bit of it, but once 5G is out there more commercially, as we roll it out, yes, we see that 5G is going to be absolutely critical in the ultimate mass market expansion of both AR and VR. So that's why I'm here, because I'm keeping a look on these markets, and I'm also keeping a look on how things are changing with COVID. So let me start showing you what I'm seeing. I'm going to start a little bit with some examples from the corporate world. And so, for example, we've got companies like Labster here in Denmark. They actually have a virtual reality. This was something that already existed. It's a virtual reality atmosphere that lets you learn how to do various chem lab kinds of things in a VR environment. And, ta-da, guess what? This is perfect for the COVID moment. They have actually seen their virtual science lab usage go up by 15 times since the beginning of this year. And we see a similar story from Athir, which is an augmented reality glasses maker for industrial, sorry, I'm losing my vowels here, for industrial applications. For example, Porsche. Porsche worked with Athir to create, back in 2018, the kind of classic AR industrial application that we've seen, where somebody can, put on the glasses and then have an expert look through the glasses using AR and then communicate. In this case, the expert on the left draws his finger, circling the thing on the screen, And then the guy on the right, who actually from this video, that's a TV presenter who's being shown what to do by the expert. That's why he looks kind of fancy there. But this is a guy who doesn't know anything about engines, and yet the expert is able to show him exactly what to do using the AR glasses. Yay, car gets fixed, yay. Well, when Porsche first rolled these out back in 2018, they saw that this created a 40% improvement in repair speed. But as time went on, they discovered that, did everybody actually use this? Not really, because humans being humans, I'm a car mechanic and I know how to do this, and maybe I don't want to admit that I don't know what to do, or maybe I'm embarrassed to call the expert. Anyway, it wasn't being utilized as fully as Porsche had hoped it would. But now with COVID, ta-da! People are like, oh, I can't call over to Joe in the other bay and say, hey, do you know how to fix this? And so now Porsche and Athi are saying that the usage has actually gone up by 300% since COVID started. So this is kind of the first thing with COVID. What we're seeing is that existing AR and VR implementations are now getting much more heavy usage than they did before, for obvious reasons. And we're also seeing companies actually go out of their way to be altruistic. This has actually been a really nice side effect of COVID. Companies like Microsoft, if you could show that you were going to be using Microsoft's AR stuff with a HoloLens for a COVID response-related activity, they would give you 6 months free access for your company. And so things like this help companies ease into it. And of course, the pressure of the lockdown situation makes companies want to actually start exploring this technology anyway. And other things like Google putting their Sodar app for Android phones, that actually lets you use your phone as a consumer to understand exactly where that 2-meter, that 6-foot mark is between you and another person as you move through spaces in the real world to keep yourself safe and socially distanced. And so, so these are opportunities for people and for companies who had not been using these technologies before to get into them in an easier way. And of course, one of the big effects that we've seen with COVID has been the rise of people just doing a huge amount of gaming at home. If we look on Twitch, boom, if we look on basically everything. But one of the things that we can see is that when Sandvine came out in May with their, twice yearly analysis of the traffic of the world on the internet, they actually saw that the Oculus Rift, so this is the platform for all of the Oculus, the apps on all the Oculus headsets, it actually made it into the top 9, the top 10 for the first time ever. Now, to be clear, the Oculus and GeForce Now, which is a cloud gaming service from NVIDIA, those two, those are both platforms and everything else is a single game. But, hey, I'm not going to split hairs here. We are actually seeing, this is evidence of a really significant rise in the usage of virtual reality with everybody stuck in their own homes. And we can actually also see this in Korea, where the phone companies there, KT and LG U+, they launched 5G a year ago and have a lot of virtual reality content as part of their launches and as part of the whole 5G consumer go-to-market proposition. Well, but so many people were using VR in the lockdown situation that they started running out of content. They hadn't expected that people would burn through everything that they had created so quickly. And so these two bitter rivals, this is the AT&T and Verizon of South Korea, they have actually done this, landmark deal to share their VR content so that they can keep feeding the beast. There's so much VR demand going on at the moment. Again, fed by the COVID moment, fed by the lockdown. So we're seeing, so these technologies, these new technologies, AR and VR, really starting to take on significant momentum and get a lot of usage in the COVID moment. Another thing that we're seeing, and this is something that is near and dear to my industry, the telecommunications industry, is that countries have discovered where the holes in their network are. And I tell you, there is nothing that can make politicians move faster than understanding that school children are not getting their schooling, because you know, these are just a bunch of clips of sample headlines, but there are all over the world. There are countries that have suddenly gone, oh no, everybody's at home, and now my rural kids, they don't have good enough connection to go to school. This is a problem. And so many governments around the world are actually investing money to get the connections out there and to finally connect up the rural areas. You know, hooray, hooray, hooray. Here in the United States, I actually saw that Verizon had actually brought out 4G connectivity for rural areas. You know, it's basically everything we've got, let's just throw it at it, let's get everybody connected, we gotta connect the kids. But that's great, because finally we're plugging the holes in the network that have been a problem. And in the but you know, for even for those of us who have, you know, who live in relatively, you know, urban suburban environments, you know, you might have the same experience that my family is having, which is that with 2 adults at home and 2 kids working, and 2 kids at home doing schooling online, and then as soon as school is over, it's straight into the full-time gaming. um, and then if somebody turns on Netflix, that, you know, we run out of bandwidth, and the guy playing Fortnite is the one that complains about it the first and the fastest. And so honestly, at home, we have actually been contemplating getting a second broadband line. And I was delighted to see that in the UK, both British Telecom, BT, and Vodafone have actually brought out offers for a second broadband line that would be cheaper than the first one, even if your first offer, you know, if your first provider is somebody else. And like, you know, so we're really seeing the impetus coming now for getting the world not just wired, but super wired. And that's actually pretty good, because that's the foundation of a lot of the kinds of AR and VR that will come out of this. Now, one of the main things that I find is fascinating about this digital moment is that the fact that we've got all these kids at home at school, they are being trained not just to use Zoom, you know, or Google Classroom, which is what kids use. They are being trained to become video producers and to have a level of digital literacy. I mean, my kids were pretty digitally literate already just from school activities before, but now it's really expanding, it's really growing. And so just as an example, my kids have to do for their gym classes, they have to do videos of themselves doing the assignments for each week. Each week they've got 2 separate things that they have to do, and then they have to video themselves with the smartphone, speed up that video, and then send it in. And so it's a little bit hard to see here, but this is my 12-year-old, and the exercise in this case was you had to lie on your back and balance the phone on your foot, and then roll over onto your stomach, as we can see here in picture 2, and then get onto your back again in picture 3, all without letting the phone drop off of your foot. And so my son, you know, it took him, okay, apparently it took him a few tries to do this, but he recorded the actual video very quickly. But then he told me he spent like hours adding video effects and music and all kinds of stuff to make the video cool. He had never done that kind of thing before, but now, you know, he's actually for kids, as part of their school assignments, their fluency in creating videos and speaking in a video language is meaning that for communicating for them over video, self-created video is getting to be as easy as, you know, I would find typing an email. And I think this level of literacy that is being induced by the COVID moment is actually something that is going to resonate far beyond, you know, however long this particular illness moment lasts. And sorry, I'm just forgiving me. I'm just checking how much time I've got. Thank you. Okay. But there's so many. I actually find this quite exciting. There's so many things that have moved online that you wouldn't expect, and still have power and importance. So, for example, the back in the spring, the Flemish kind of the Tour of Flanders, de Ronde. This was back in April, and so this is the main road race in Belgium. And well, they didn't have the road race itself. So what they did was that they took television crews and they went to the homes of 13 of the cyclists, the top cyclists who would have been in the actual race. And you can see here on the left, they, put them on exercise bikes at home, and then they set up a TV camera, and then they actually used a cycling gaming app, to actually then have the race, and they broadcast it on TV with live commentators. And it was in some ways even more thrilling in this artificial digital environment than watching an actual road race is, because you can see the close-ups of the riders the whole time, and the effort that they're putting into it becomes much more apparent. And so you start to realize that for some of these things going digital, it's not, a cheapo plan B. Sometimes it's actually an improvement. Then other kind of creative ways that we've seen of people sharing, things that are not popular in the COVID moment. There's a lot of music, a lot of online concerts, obviously a lot of stuff happening in VR. But then you've got really creative things like real estate, doing what they call the Quarantour. And so they created this using web-based AR. So this is my kitchen here. You can see me sitting. This is the chair I'm sitting in here off to the left. And so this whole thing sitting on the table, sorry, it's kind of dark. I took this with my phone. That's actually an AR creation of the band Real Estate on stage and playing a song, all used in web-based AR. So things that they would not have done before, and me as a viewer watching them in ways that I would never have watched before. People are getting exposed to all kinds of new things. But one of the things that's really wonderful about AR and VR, of course, is this is the real estate example. This is bringing it's this is this. If I had gone to an actual concert, it would have looked exactly like this. But of course, the power of AR and VR is to be able to do things that never could exist in the real world, and exposing people to the power of digitization of things, and not just like random fantasy things, but things that have meaning and have import. And so, for example, earlier in the year when the Kentucky Derby was first scheduled back in May and had to be canceled, and of course they ran it later in the year, but when the original Kentucky Derby was supposed to be broadcast, NBC's like, oh no, we paid all this money to have this race, and now we can't have it. What do we do? They, of course, Kentucky Derby is the first race in the horse racing Triple Crown. And there have been 13 horses over time that have won the Triple Crown. And so what they did was they did a digital race where they took all of the winners of the Triple Crown, all 13 horses, and then they had them, they played their each individual Kentucky Derby winning run, and broadcast that. Now, and no, anybody who knows anything about horse racing knows ahead of time that Secretariat's going to win it. But oh my God, I get goosebumps every time I think about this. It was so exciting and so thrilling to see all of these famous horses running against each other, and to see how they would have matched up against each other. Just really, really thrilling stuff. And then NASCAR had a similar moment when they started doing a similar kind of thing. Well, they started getting it was similar kind of thing to the biking. They started getting NASCAR racers to race against each other in a digital racing platform, the iRacing platform in this case, and and to broadcast those things, those competitions. They didn't count for anything, but it was still a fun thing. And how do the race drivers do when it's a gaming platform? But they actually went to the North Wilkesboro Speedway, which was closed in 1996, and then did a 3D filming of that, and then were able to hold a virtual race in this speedway that a lot of people hold dear in their hearts, but it's been closed for 24 years. And so for people to be able to see this old speedway again, using this moment to actually bring things that have emotional import to people that were not possible otherwise. Speaking of sports in general, I want to do a personal shout out here to two VR companies. VZ Fit and Supernatural, because so personal fitness is also something that's gone up, usage of personal fitness during this quarantine moment. I personally have lost 14 pounds since February using these two apps every day. And so, you know, Supernatural, fantastic Beat Saber-like upper body, VZ Fit, spectacular. There's a sensor that clips onto your bike pedal and you cycle, and you can either play games or you can cycle through real world landscapes using Google Street Maps. I was cycling through the French Alps just this morning. Yeah, like I said, 14 pounds. I love, love both of these programs. That's not a paid message. That's a personal message from the heart for me. So yeah, so fitness on, you know, fitness, and it works. It totally works. It totally works. Okay, moving on. Another thing that we're seeing in uh, 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 and this is actually one of the most significant things that I'm coming to now, is the moving of activities. So from the physical world, right? Say real world, but you know, stuff online is real too, right? So from the physical world into gaming platforms. And because gaming platforms already have worlds that have been created, if you've played the game, you've spent a lot of time in these environments, and they're lovely environments. And quite often you want to stay in these environments. For me, like, you know, the environments of Moss or Down the Rabbit Hole are beautiful worlds that I actually was sorry to leave when the game ended. And so you get things like this famous tweet stream back from May, where the British children's author Vivian Schwartz talked about how the fact that she was holding her editorial meetings in Red Dead Redemption, and they had to be careful which controls they hit, so otherwise they'd be punching each other. Um, and Kathy Hackle, you know, our well-known VR colleague here, she shared with me that her child actually graduated from kindergarten in Minecraft this year, and so and apparently there were a lot of school graduations or other school functions that happened in Minecraft because so many of the kids at that age all were very familiar with Minecraft, and so this is things that would have happened in the physical world with meaning, but they are moving into these platforms that were not built for that. But because they have meaning for the end users, people are starting to have these physical world events go into this digital environment and have them still have meaning and significance. And one of the platforms that actually has been seeing perhaps the most of this kind of activity is Animal Crossing. And so there have been weddings in Animal Crossing. I actually found out about this one from a friend. She was here in the States. She was up in the middle of the night, and she actually happened to catch a wedding of two people in Australia that happened in Animal Crossing, and all of their friends asked everybody to come and like give gifts and things, and so people did. And so this really big joyous occasion. And on the other end, people have been having funerals and memorials in Animal Crossing, again because you can't invite people in person, but since it's a game that's so completely socially based and all about getting together and giving gifts and creating bonds, it's really flourished during the COVID era. And so it shouldn't be a surprise that because it's so good at connecting people, we're starting to see brands like, for example, Tatcha Skincare. They've recently created their own island in Animal Crossing. They had meant to have a big marketing campaign around Japan and Japanese themes this year, but they weren't able to do that. They weren't able to go to Japan and do that. So what they did was they built an island on Animal Crossing and made it a very Japanese themed island with all of their products and stuff that turns into a big advertisement. And then the Biden-Harris campaign has actually created little yard signs that you can get and put in front of your house in Animal Crossing. And regardless of your politics, what this means is that we're seeing this digital parallel universe start to assume a meaning that is important enough for brands to come in, for political parties to come in, and to understand that people's being in those worlds is as important, maybe not as important, but assumes an importance, and that reaching people with their various messages in these worlds actually might be worth doing. And so now I actually play Animal Crossing myself, and so I know what it is to actually covet things for your dwelling and to want to wear fabulous clothes. And Animal Crossing is very clever with this. And this kind of leads us to the world of crypto art. And these are digital art pieces that are linked to blockchain NFTs or Nifties. Those are non-fungible tokens. So what they are, it's basically a stamp of uniqueness. This thing cannot be copied, and it's not assigned to any particular value, but you know that there's only, one of these versus, anybody being able to copy all these things. And so one example, Nifty Gateway, owned by Gemini, which is the Winklevoss twins, by the way. Nifty Gateway is one marketplace for crypto art. And I actually, frankly, I would not have understood this if I had not first seen or played Animal Crossing. It's like, oh, now I get it. When my digital world, my online existence has meaning to me, then yeah, you know what? Okay, I may not be spending $1,500 for the shiny kit here thing on the all the way on the right, but Big Burb, I kind of like the look of him. He's got some attitude here, so yeah, man, I might shell out $60 for a little digital crystal sculpture that I can put on a table in my virtual world. Now, to be clear, Animal Crossing is not AR or VR, but the emotions that it's tapping and the vast reach that it's actually had, I think shows the potential that we're going to have for the parallel worlds that we're going to see in VR and AR. And and so I just wanted to kind of end with, speaking of parallel worlds, the recreation of Burning Man in in VR this year in Altspace. Really, really beautiful. I attended Burning Man in 2018, and it was just one of the most spectacular experiences of my life. And to be able to go back to it anytime I like, I was just there back last night, and to go around and across the playa and actually fly. So there's no dust and you can fly. So it's even better. But also, if you've never been, I met with a friend of mine from Britain who hadn't been, and I took him on a tour of Burning Man in VR. This is really the beginning of us understanding how virtual worlds have meaning, and many people are in them. People will continue to go into them. And this is uh, uh, it's no longer going to be that something has to happen in the physical world to have value. And that, I think, is the significant pivot that is happening with this COVID moment. We're going to see a rise in AR and VR, and I personally think that everything that I've talked about today, the wider exposure and the improvement and the enhancement of people's lives through digital experiences, is only going to make it a faster entry ramp into mass market AR and VR on a wide scale once the hardware actually becomes more widely available. And so the last and that's actually me dancing at Burning Man, my alt space avatar, wearing wings and dancing at Mayan Warrior, and then wearing a mask as well over my face, because that's what you do. And yeah, so do I feel that I went to Burning Man this year? Yeah, okay, maybe not 100%, but definitely about 30%. And you know what? That's more than I thought I was going to get. So we're on the way to some really, really great stuff in our new parallel universes. And so I just leave you with this quote from Martin Luther King: "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase." And so the world of AR and VR, we might not know the timing and we might not know exactly which direction the staircase is going, but we know that this staircase is going up into spectacular, spectacular things. And I hope you'll join me and all of our other fabulous inhabitants of the new world of AR and VR and come along for the ride. Thank you very much.